What's happening, everybody? It's Anthony from the Daily Truth, the Truth in Five. Well, it's gonna be a little more than that. It's Christmas, so I'm gonna give you guys a story that's one of my favorite of all time. I believe as though for the Daily Truth, I did this last year as well, but I think it's a great story to hear. I like to read it every Christmas, and I think that you will enjoy same story this Christmas. So please, without further ado, like this video. First off, all you, thank you guys. I'm very blessed. I have a lot of gratitude for everything that you guys do, paying attention to these wild and crazy daily videos that I do. I want to make sure I'm on the right audio while we are doing this, which I am. Excellent. All right, go put in the comments. Tell me what you're thankful for this Christmas. Gratitude of the season. Anyways, the name of this story is A Christmas Eve Story by Matt Miles. It was Christmas 1942. I was 15 years old and feeling like the world had caved in on me because there just hadn't been enough money to buy me the rifle that I'd wanted for Christmas. We did the chores early that night. For some reason, I just figured Daddy wanted a little extra time so we could all read the Bible. After supper was over, I took my boots and stretched out in front of the fireplace and waited for Daddy to go get down the old Bible. I was still feeling sorry for myself, to be honest. I wasn't in really the mood to read scriptures, but Daddy didn't get down the Bible. Instead, he bundled up again and went outside. I couldn't figure out what was happening because we'd already done all the chores. I didn't worry about it long, though. I was too busy wallowing in my own self-pity. Soon he came back in. It was a cold, clear night out there, and there was ice in his beard. He said, "Come on, Matt," he said, "bundle up. It's cold out tonight." I was really upset then. Not only was I not getting the rifle for Christmas, now he was dragging me out into the cold and for no earthly reason that I could see. We'd already done all the chores and I couldn't think of anything else that needed to be doing, especially not on a night like this. But I knew that he was not very patient at one dragging one's feet when he told them to do something. So I got up, put my boots back on and got my coat. Mommy gave me a mysterious smile as I opened the door to leave the house. Something was up, but I did not know what. Outside, I became even more dismayed. There in front of the house was the work team. Was the work team? I don't speak 1942. Already hitched to the big sled. Whatever it was we were going to do wasn't going to be short, quick little job, I could tell. We never hitched up this sled unless we were going to haul a big load. Daddy was already up on the seat, reins in hand, and I reluctantly climbed up beside him. The cold was already biting at me. I wasn't happy. When I was on, Daddy pulled the sled around to the house and stopped in the front of the woodshed. He got off and I followed. "I think we'll put on the high sideboards," he said. "Here, help me." The high sideboards. It had been a bigger job than I wanted to do with the low sideboards. But whatever would we be doing, that it would get even bigger that I had to put the sideboards on, the high sideboards. Then Daddy went into the woodshed and came out with an armload of wood. The wood I'd spent all summer hauling down from the mountains. And then all fall sawing into blocks and splitting. What was he doing? Finally, I said something. I asked, "Dad, what are you doing?" "You've been by the widow Jensen's lately?" he asked. Miss Jensen lived about 2 miles down the road. Her husband had died a year or so before and left her with 3 children, the oldest being 8. "Sure, I'd been by, but so what?" I said, "Why?" I just rode by today," he said. "Little Jakey was out digging around in the woodpile trying to find a few chips. They're out of wood, Matt." That was all he said, and then he turned and went back into the woodshed for another armload of wood, and I followed him. We loaded the sled so high that I began to wonder if the horses would be able to pull it. Finally, he called a halt to our loading event, then went to the smokehouse and he took down a big ham and a side of bacon. He handed them to me and told me to put them in the sled and wait. When he returned, he was carrying a sack of flour over his right shoulder and a smaller sack of something in his left hand. "What's in the little sack?" I asked. "Shoes. They're out of shoes. Little Jakey just had little gunny sacks wrapped around his feet when he was out in the woodpile this morning. I got the children a little candy too. It wouldn't be Christmas without a little candy." As I read this, I realize, how do people not realize how good we have it? Like, even homeless people, whatever. I didn't mean to digress. We rode the 2 miles to Mrs. Jensen's pretty much in silence. I tried to think through what Daddy was doing. We didn't have much by worldly standards. Of course, we did have a big wood pile, though most of what was left was still now in the form of logs that I would have to saw into blocks and split before we could use. We also had meat and flour, so we could spare that, but I knew we didn't have money. So why was he buying them shoes and candy? Really? Why was he doing any of this? Widow Jensen had closer neighbors than us. It shouldn't have been our concern. We came in from the blind side of Miss Jensen's house and unloaded the wood as quietly as possible. And then we took the meat and flour and shoes to the door. We knocked. The door opened a crack a bit and with a timid voice said, "Who is it?" "Lucas Miles, ma'am, and my son Matt. Could we come in for a bit?" Ms. Jensen opened the door and let us in. She had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The children were wrapped in another and were sitting by the fireplace with a very small fire that hardly gave off any heat at all. Mrs. Jensen fumbled with a match and finally lit the lamp. "We brought you a few things, ma'am," Daddy said and sat down the sack of flour, put meat on the table. Then he handed her the sack that had the shoes in it. She opened it hesitantly and took the shoes out one pair at a time. There was a pair for her and one for each of the children. Sturdy shoes, the best kind of shoes, shoes that would last. I watched her carefully. She bit her lower lip, and to keep it from trembling, and then the tears filled her eyes. Keep it from trembling, and the tears filled her eyes and started running down her cheeks. She looked at my daddy, looked up at him. She wanted to say something, but it wouldn't come out. "We brought you a load of wood too, ma'am," he said, and then he turned to me and said, "Matt, go bring in enough to last a while. Let's get that fire up to size and heat this place up." I wasn't the same person when I went back out to bring in the wood. I had a big lump in my throat, and as much as I hate to admit it, there were tears in my eyes too. In my mind, I kept seeing those three kids huddled around the fireplace and their mother standing there with tears running down her cheeks, with so much gratitude in her heart that she couldn't speak. My heart my heart swelled within me, and the joy that I'd never known before filled my soul. I'd given it Christmas many times before, but never when it had made so much a difference. I could see we were literally saving the lives of these people. I soon had the fire blazing and everyone's spirits soared. The kids started giggling when Daddy handed them each a piece of candy, and Mrs. Jensen looked out with a smile that probably hadn't crossed her face in a very long time. She finally turned to us. "God bless you," she said. "I know the Lord has sent you to be here. The children and I have been praying that he would send one of his angels to spare us." In spite of myself, the lump returned to my throat and the tears welled in my eyes again. I never thought of my daddy in those exact same terms before, but after Widow Jensen mentioned it, I could see that it was probably true. I was sure that a better man than daddy had never walked the earth. I started remembering all the times he had gone out of his way for mommy and me and many others. The list seemed endless as I thought on it. Daddy insisted that everyone try on the shoes before we left. I was amazed when they all fit, and I wondered how he had known what sizes to get. Then I guessed that if he was on an errand for the Lord, and the Lord would make sure that he would get the right sizes. Tears were running down Widow Jensen's face again when we stood up to leave. My daddy took each of the kids in his big arms and gave them a hug. They clung to him and didn't want us to go. I could see that they missed their daddy. I still had mine. At the door, he turned to Widow Jensen and said, "The missus wanted me to invite you and the children over for Christmas dinner tomorrow. The turkey will be more than the three of us can eat. And a man can get a little cantankerous if he has to eat turkey for too many meals. We'll get by we'll be by and get you by around 11. It'd be nice to have some little ones running around again. Matt here hasn't been little for quite a spell. I was the youngest. My two brothers and sisters had all married and moved away." Mrs. Jensen nodded and said, "Thank you, Brother Miles. I don't have to say, may the Lord bless you. I know for certain that he will." Out on the sled, I felt a warmth that came from deep within, and I didn't even notice the cold. When we had gone away, Daddy turned to me and said, "Matt, I want you to know something. Your mother and I have been tucking a little money away here and there all year so that we could buy that rifle for you, but we didn't have quite enough. Then yesterday, a man who owed me a little money from years back came by to make things square. Your mom and I were real excited, thinking now we could get you that rifle. And I started into town this morning to do just that, but then on the way, I saw little Jakey out scratching the woodpile with his feet wrapped in the gunny sacks, and I knew what I had to do. Son, I spent the money for the shoe money. I spent the money for shoes and a little candy for those children. I hope you understand." He said, I understood. He didn't say it. The story did. I understood, and my eyes became wet with tears again. I understood very well, and I was so glad that Daddy had done it. Now the rifle seemed very low on my list of priorities. He had given me a lot more. He had given me the look on Mrs. Jensen's face and the radiant smiles of her three children. For the rest of my life, whenever I saw the Jensens or split a block of wood, I remembered, and remembering brought me back to that same joy I felt riding back home beside my daddy that night. He had given me so much more than a rifle that evening. He had given me the best Christmas of my life. That's the message I have for you guys today. So we all want things in life, but we realize that it's not even about being rich. It's not about having all the things. It's about the ability to give, breathe life into people that don't actually fully have what they in that moment want. So around this Christmas time, and I'm not saying today or tomorrow, just think in the next couple of weeks how you can bless someone, something, to do something greater than yourself, to give something greater than yourself so that you have a blessed feeling inside of you. There is no better feeling than the ability to save someone, be there for someone, enrich someone's life in a way that you didn't know was possible. So, with that said, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Um, Happy New Year. We'll get there though. I'll do something on New Year's. But with that, take that with you. Like this video, share this video, do all the things with this video. God bless. Don't surrender your pets. Do something special for a dog, something, cat, whatever. God bless. Merry Christmas.